You know that feeling when someone crosses a line and something ancient awakens in you? That split second when your usual, gentle nature vanishes and something fierce takes over. Most people call INFJs sensitive empaths, but there's something deeper and more powerful at work here. What if I told you that your intensity isn't emotional instability? What if your protective instincts aren't just personality quirks? There's actual biological programming hidden in your DNA that explains why you operate so differently from everyone else. By the end of this video, you'll understand the scientific truth behind your warrior instincts and why nature designed you to be exactly who you are. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you're looking for a deeper understanding of yourself and your INFJ personality, browse our favorite INFJ products in the description and click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. The ancient code hidden in your DNA. Here's what researchers discovered that changes everything about how we understand INFJs. There's a specific gene variant called MAOA that creates heightened sensitivity to injustice and threat detection. But this isn't about making you aggressive. It's about making you a biological early warning system. Think of it this way. While most people walk through life with basic threat detection, you're running advanced security software in the background. Your brain processes microexpressions, energy shifts, and environmental dangers that others completely miss. This genetic programming doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you strategically aware. Now, this next part is where things get interesting, because it explains that one quirk you thought was a weakness, but is actually your greatest weapon. Your so-called overthinking? That's actually sophisticated pattern recognition designed for survival. When you replay conversations or analyze social situations, you're not being neurotic. You're processing threat data and social dynamics at a level most people can't comprehend. The MAOA variant creates both the sensitivity and the fierce protective response when boundaries get crossed. You feel injustice in your bones because you're genetically wired to detect and respond to it. This explains why you can sense when someone is lying before they've even finished talking. Why you know something's wrong in a room before anyone else notices. But here's where it gets really interesting. This same genetic programming explains your compulsion to defend the vulnerable. You're not choosing to be a protector. You're fulfilling ancient biological instructions that have been passed down through thousands of generations. When you were a child and you stood up to bullies, that wasn't learned behavior. When you feel physically sick watching injustice, that's not emotional sensitivity. That's your warrior gene, responding to threat patterns the way it was designed to respond. Your intuitive hits about people aren't mystical abilities. They're the result of your brain processing hundreds of microsignals and running them through genetic programming that's fine-tuned for detecting deception, manipulation, and danger. You're reading body language, vocal patterns, and energy signatures that most people's brains simply filter out. This is why you can walk into a room and immediately know who's trustworthy and who isn't. Why you sense relationship problems before the couple realizes they have them. Why you feel exhausted after being around certain people, even when the interaction seemed pleasant on the surface. Your brain is constantly scanning for inconsistencies between what people say and what they actually mean, between their public persona and their hidden intentions, between the energy they project and the truth they're hiding. This isn't a choice you're making. This is genetic programming running in the background of your consciousness. Now, everything I've just told you about DNA won't make sense until you understand this next step. This is how your brain literally predicts the future of your relationships. The loneliness you feel isn't because you're broken or too different. It's because you're carrying information and awareness that most people can't access. You're seeing patterns and connections that others miss entirely. You're operating with a level of social and emotional intelligence that feels isolating because so few people share it. This explains why small talk feels meaningless to you. Your brain is designed to process deep, significant information. Surface-level interactions don't engage your genetic programming, so they feel empty and draining. You're not being difficult or antisocial. You're just operating with hardware that's designed for more complex social analysis. Now let's explore how this ancient programming shows up in modern INFJ behavior and why understanding this changes everything about how you see yourself. Why your brain operates like a strategic defense system. Your INFJ mind doesn't just process information. It runs constant background security scans on everything and everyone around you. This isn't anxiety or paranoia. This is your genetic programming operating exactly as designed. Think about how military defense systems work. They're constantly monitoring for threats, analyzing patterns, and preparing strategic responses. Your brain operates the same way, except instead of radar and satellites, you're using introverted intuition combined with your warrior gene programming. Every conversation you have, your mind is simultaneously processing multiple layers of information. You're tracking facial expressions, vocal tonality, body language, and energy patterns. You're comparing what people say against what their behavior reveals. You're running predictive models about their intentions and potential actions. This is why you often know how conversations will end before they've barely started. Your brain has already processed the opening moves and calculated the most likely outcomes. You're not psychic. You're running advanced pattern recognition software that most people don't have access to. When you meet someone new, you're not just making small talk. You're conducting a comprehensive threat assessment. Is this person safe? Are they authentic? Do their words match their energy? Are they trying to manipulate or deceive? Your subconscious is processing hundreds of microsignals and cross-referencing them against your genetic database of threat patterns. The famous INFJ door slam isn't an emotional reaction. It's a calculated defense mechanism, triggered when your internal security system determines that someone poses a significant threat to your well-being or the well-being of people you protect. Your brain has processed enough data points to conclude that this person is dangerous, and your genetic programming activates the most efficient response: complete disconnection. Most people think this next behavior is an emotional outburst, but science reveals it's actually a cold, tactical necessity. This explains why the door slam feels so final, and why you rarely change your mind about it. Your decision isn't based on hurt feelings or temporary anger. It's based on comprehensive analysis that has determined this person represents a fundamental threat to your security or values. Your need for alone time isn't antisocial behavior. It's data processing time. After running constant security scans in social situations, your brain needs quiet space to analyze all the information you've collected. You're literally downloading and organizing threat data, social patterns, and environmental information. This is why you feel exhausted after parties or large gatherings, even when you enjoyed them. Your brain has been working overtime, monitoring multiple people simultaneously, tracking group dynamics, and maintaining awareness of potential threats or conflicts. You haven't just been socializing. You've been running a comprehensive security operation. The hypervigilance that others might see as anxiety is actually your genetic programming functioning normally. You notice things others miss because your brain is designed to notice them. The person who seems friendly but has predatory energy. The couple who appears happy but is hiding serious problems. The group dynamic that's about to explode into conflict. Your strategic mind doesn't just observe these patterns. It automatically starts calculating responses. If this person becomes a problem, what's your exit strategy? If this conflict escalates, how do you protect the vulnerable people in the room? If this situation becomes dangerous, what are your options? This constant strategic thinking is why you often seem to be living 3 steps ahead of everyone else. While others are reacting to what's happening now, you're already preparing for what's likely to happen next. Your brain is running multiple scenario planning operations simultaneously. The intensity that others find overwhelming is actually precision engineering. Your emotional responses aren't random or excessive. They're calibrated to match the level of threat or significance your genetic programming has detected. When you react strongly to something, it's because your internal systems have identified it as genuinely important. But here's where this incredible capability becomes a double-edged sword. The same programming that makes you an exceptional protector and strategist can also create specific psychological vulnerabilities that most people don't understand. The dark side of your warrior programming. The same genetic programming that makes you an exceptional protector also creates specific psychological traps that most people don't understand. Your warrior gene doesn't just activate when there's real danger. It can get triggered by perceived threats, past trauma patterns, and situations that remind your subconscious of previous betrayals. When your threat detection system runs too hot for too long, hypervigilance can transform into paranoia. You start seeing enemies where there might only be misunderstandings. Your pattern recognition becomes so sensitive that you read malicious intent into neutral behaviors. The security software that usually protects you begins generating false positives. This is particularly dangerous because your intuitive hits are usually accurate. You've learned to trust your instincts because they've saved you countless times. But when your system is overwhelmed or triggered, you can't easily distinguish between genuine threats and phantom dangers created by an overactive defense mechanism. Your genetic programming prioritizes tribe survival over individual needs. This means you'll sacrifice yourself repeatedly to protect others, even when those people don't deserve your protection or wouldn't do the same for you. Your warrior instincts compel you to throw yourself on every grenade, regardless of the cost to your own well-being. You may find yourself in relationships where you're constantly managing other people's emotions, solving their problems, and absorbing their pain. Your genetic programming interprets their distress as a threat to tribal stability, so you automatically move into protection mode. But this leaves you depleted and resentful, while others become dependent on your constant intervention. The constant threat assessment creates chronic anxiety even in safe environments. Your brain doesn't have an off switch for the security monitoring. Even when you're at home alone, part of your mind is still scanning for potential problems, analyzing past interactions, and preparing for future conflicts. This hypervigilance burns enormous amounts of mental energy. When you feel cornered or betrayed, your strategic mind can become manipulative. The same analytical abilities that help you understand and protect others can be weaponized when your warrior programming decides someone is an enemy. You know exactly where people's vulnerabilities are because you've been studying them for protection purposes. Now, this next part is where things get dark. We're going to talk about what happens when the protector decides to stop pulling their punches. This is when the famous INFJ villain arc begins. After years of suppressing your warrior instincts and trying to be the perfect empath, something finally pushes you too far. The gentle protector disappears, and something cold and calculating takes over. You stop pulling your punches and start using your psychological insights as weapons. The villain arc happens because you've been taught that your intensity is wrong, that your protective instincts are too much, that you should be softer and more accommodating. So you suppress the warrior programming until it builds up like pressure in a volcano. When it finally erupts, the explosion is devastating because you've been holding back enormous power. People are shocked when the sweet, sensitive INFJ suddenly becomes ruthlessly strategic. They don't understand that you haven't changed personalities. You've simply stopped restraining your natural capabilities. The person who could see everyone's pain and potential can also see their weaknesses and fears. Learning to distinguish between real threats and perceived threats becomes crucial for your mental health. Your genetic programming is ancient and powerful, but it wasn't designed for modern social complexities. Understanding this changes everything about how you should approach relationships and boundaries.
Reclaiming your ancient power in modern life.
Now, all of this intensity will actually destroy your peace of mind if you don't know this next step. This one shift will literally turn your hypervigilance into your greatest strategic advantage. The first step to reclaiming your power is understanding that your intensity isn't a character flaw that needs fixing. It's genetic programming designed for protection and survival. Stop apologizing for being too much, too sensitive, or too complicated. You're operating with precision-engineered capabilities that most people simply don't possess. Your threat assessment abilities are incredibly valuable when used strategically, rather than letting them run wild on autopilot. Instead of constantly scanning for problems, learn to direct your analytical powers toward specific situations that actually matter. When you're evaluating a new relationship, job opportunity, or living situation, Trust your genetic programming to read the patterns others miss. The key is learning to distinguish between security mode and growth mode. Security mode is when your warrior programming is actively scanning for threats and preparing defensive strategies. Growth mode is when you feel safe enough to explore, create, and connect without constant vigilance. Understanding which mode you're in helps you respond appropriately to situations. Set boundaries before your warrior gene gets triggered, not after. Your genetic programming is designed to respond to boundary violations with escalating intensity. By the time someone has crossed your lines enough to activate your defense systems, you're already in damage control mode. Prevention is always more effective than reaction. This means getting comfortable with saying no, early and often. Your programming compels you to help and protect, but not every request for help deserves your energy. Learn to evaluate whether someone genuinely needs protection, or if they're simply looking for someone to solve problems they should handle themselves. Channel your protective instincts toward causes and people who actually deserve your warrior energy. Your genetic programming gives you incredible power to defend and advocate, but that power should be reserved for situations where it can create genuine positive change. Stop wasting your intensity on people who don't value it, or situations you can't actually influence. When you feel your security systems activating, pause and ask yourself what specific threat pattern your brain has detected. Is someone being deceptive? Are they showing signs of manipulation or predatory behavior? Or is your system responding to old trauma patterns that aren't actually present in the current situation? Your intuitive hits about people are usually accurate because they're based on sophisticated pattern recognition that operates below conscious awareness. When your gut tells you someone is dangerous, dishonest, or unstable, trust that assessment. Your genetic programming has processed information that your conscious mind hasn't even noticed yet. Create environments where your sensitivity becomes an asset rather than a liability. This might mean choosing careers in counseling, advocacy, or creative fields where your ability to read people and situations is valued. It might mean building relationships with other highly sensitive people who understand your operating system. The goal isn't to suppress your warrior nature or pretend you're someone you're not. The goal is becoming a conscious strategist who uses your genetic gifts intentionally. This means recognizing when you're being triggered by old patterns versus responding to genuine, present-moment threats. Learn to communicate your needs clearly before resentment builds up. Your programming makes you excellent at reading other people's needs, but you often assume others can read yours with the same accuracy. Most people can't. You need to explicitly state your boundaries, expectations, and limits. When you feel the urge to go into fix-it mode for someone else's problems, pause and ask whether this person has actually requested your help, or if your protective programming is just activating automatically. Sometimes the most strategic thing you can do is allow people to experience the natural consequences of their choices. Your warrior energy is finite and precious. Treat it like the valuable resource it is. Don't spend it on people who drain you, situations you can't control, or battles that aren't actually yours to fight. Save your intensity for the moments when it can create real impact and positive change. Understanding your genetic programming doesn't mean becoming cold or disconnected. It means becoming powerfully selective about where you direct your incredible capabilities. You're not meant to be everyone's therapist, protector, or emotional support system. You're meant to be a strategic force for good in the specific areas where your gifts can make the biggest difference. The evolutionary purpose of the INFJ warrior. Here's what most people don't understand about why you exist. Nature doesn't keep genetic variants around unless they serve a critical survival function. The INFJ type represents roughly 1% of the population, and that percentage isn't random. It's precisely calibrated for optimal tribal survival. Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. If everyone in a tribe had the same threat detection capabilities, the entire group would be vulnerable to the same blind spots. If everyone was highly sensitive to environmental dangers, the tribe would be paralyzed by constant hypervigilance. But if no one had advanced pattern recognition abilities, the group would walk straight into preventable disasters. You exist because tribes need strategic protectors who can see what others miss. while the majority focuses on immediate survival tasks like hunting, gathering, and reproduction. Someone needs to be monitoring the bigger picture. Someone needs to be tracking long-term patterns, identifying potential threats before they become critical, and maintaining awareness of social dynamics that could destabilize the group. Your genetic programming makes you a biological early warning system. You're designed to detect problems before they become crises, to sense deception before it causes damage, and to identify individuals who pose risks to tribal safety. This isn't a burden you've been cursed with. It's a specialized role that nature specifically designed you to fulfill. The loneliness you feel makes perfect sense when you understand your evolutionary purpose. You're carrying knowledge and responsibilities that most people can't comprehend because they're not designed to comprehend them. You're operating with information processing capabilities that feel isolating precisely because they're rare and specialized. Your job has never been to fit into a world that doesn't understand you. Your job is to use your gifts consciously to protect and guide the people who need your unique perspective. The warrior gene explains why so many INFJs end up in healing professions, counseling roles, advocacy positions, or creative fields where they can channel their protective instincts productively. You're not broken because you see patterns others miss. You're not too sensitive because you feel injustice in your bones. You're not too intense because you respond strongly to threats and deception. You're fulfilling an ancient evolutionary role that has kept human tribes alive for thousands of generations. The reason you feel compelled to defend the vulnerable isn't learned behavior or moral superiority. It's genetic programming that recognizes threats to tribal members who can't protect themselves. Your brain automatically categorizes people into protector, protected, and potential threat categories, because that's how it was designed to maintain group survival. Your ability to see through facades and detect hidden intentions isn't a mystical gift. It's sophisticated pattern recognition software that evolution developed to help tribes avoid manipulation, betrayal, and predatory behavior. You're reading microexpressions, vocal patterns, and behavioral inconsistencies that most people's brains simply filter out as irrelevant. This explains why you often end up in positions where people confide their deepest secrets and seek your guidance for their most difficult problems. Your genetic programming creates an energy signature that vulnerable people instinctively recognize as safe. You're broadcasting protection and understanding at a frequency that draws those who need healing. The intensity that others find overwhelming is actually precision calibration. Your emotional responses are designed to match the significance of what you're detecting. When you react strongly to something, it's because your internal systems have identified it as genuinely important for survival or well-being. Understanding your evolutionary purpose doesn't mean you have to sacrifice yourself for everyone else's benefit. It means recognizing that your gifts are valuable and should be used strategically. You're designed to be a conscious protector, not a martyr who burns out from trying to save everyone. Embracing your warrior nature doesn't make you aggressive or cold. It makes you authentically powerful in the way nature intended you to be. Your sensitivity isn't weakness disguised as strength. It's ancient strength operating through modern DNA, calibrated by thousands of generations of evolutionary refinement. The intensity you've been taught to apologize for is actually precision engineering designed to protect and guide. Trust your warrior instincts while learning to manage the intensity consciously. You're not meant to suppress this power or pretend it doesn't exist. You're meant to become a strategic force for good in the specific areas where your gifts can create the most impact. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.